Okay, so we're on. I'll just. Okay. That was exciting. I was saying to Hal, I don't know if you guys could hear, but when I got up this morning, I boiled the kettle, made myself a cup of tea, and then suddenly realized there's no power in the house. Whatever had happened, the power was completely gone. So the internet was down. That was a bit of a disaster for me. I started running around looking at flip switches and where's the power gone? But luckily it came back. So all is well. Anyway, so guys, I'm sort of jumping in at the end of a process. I feel you've been doing work, and it's like it's like a new member stepping into the group. Do you know? Suddenly, I step into the group, and I'm not up to speed on what you've been doing. You've had whatever experiences you've had. So, what I say to you or what I do with you may feel a bit disjointed because it's not going to be a natural continuation of what you have been doing, although maybe it'll tie in. So just bear with me if it feels like, hang on, what's this? Or which direction are we going? Or say it to me. Listen, what's this about? Or how is this going to tie in with what we've been experiencing? The destination for today, obviously, is you guys moving into the silence. And it even when I call it the silence, not a silence, it's a very specific silence. It's a silence which is created through the absence of yourself. Yeah, not just no sound. Okay, you're moving into certain qualities, the qualities which are normally obscured through the presence of your own mind. Do you see? Do you understand the words? Life in the room. Okay, yeah. So I'm referring to it as the silence, not a silence. Anyway, that's it. So what we're looking at is overall, what is this all about? Okay, it's a journey of identity within the psyche, a journey of identity, your own self-identity, your ego, as the center. It's a journey of that center into a new position within the psyche. Now, everything that you've experienced so far in your life, beyond your life, coming into this life, it's all coming through the center of your own identity. If you're holding a hose watering the garden, you could be standing 30 yards away from where the tap is, and yet the water is coming out at the end of the hose. So everything is being channeled into this opening, which is the ego. So whether it's from today, from yesterday, from last year, from previous times, thousands of years ago, it really makes no difference. It's all happening now. And it's happening within your own perception. It's part of your story. You're responding to it before the world gets to see it. You're responding to it. See, who hears the sound of your own voice first? Who feels the sensation of your words first? It takes time for my voice to get across the room. So I am an experience happening to myself. Do you see? I am an experience. There's an experience happening within me. And it's happening from me to me. It's completely my own organization. And it's unconscious. I'm not seeing it. because of this thing called identity. I have an identity. I have a continuation. Sure, I know who I am. Do you see, the world has told me who I am to be. So this identity is organized from the pairing, the dyad of me and the world and me. Now, family as part of the world. Once upon a time, family was my world. Now I've moved into a bigger world, but it's still between me and it outside. You see, and that effect is organizing me. And all of my stuff, all of my complexes, my psyche, my personal unconsciousness, my shadow, all of it is wrapped up around that organization, that dance between me and those experiences that belong in the world. Now, as long as my identity is fixed in that place, I'm forever going to be dealing with that. I'll clean out the hole, dig a hole, clean out the hole, and then I look down into the hole and there's more soil after falling down into the hole, and I clean it out again. And next time I look down to it, hey, there's more soil after falling down into the hole. And I'm in this never-ending process of working on myself, doing more work on myself, digging the hole deeper, going down into myself. Do you see, into the qualities of the self within me. But what I'm doing is really deepening my own story. Do you see, oh, I did this piece of work yesterday. Wait till I tell you what I experienced. More story. Do you understand the difference between working on yourself and working on the self? The silence, the self. So in entering into the silence, what you're trying to do, is not really to chase an experience. It's to realize an experience. There's a difference between chasing after something and standing still. Okay, so the essence of standing still is that you stop what you're doing. You stop what you're doing. Now, from a theory point of view, from a point of view of understanding, in order to gain the knowledge of this process, what's happening on the inside is about these two centers, the ego center and the self center. So Jung talks about the ego self axis. Yeah. This relationship, the ego self axis, it's not knowledge, it's a relationship. So the ego, when the ego self axis is closed, I'm in a relationship with myself, me, ego, me, my story, my family, my past. And as the door of the self opens, as I move into the relationship with the self begins to relate more through me. The journey of the identity is moving down that axis towards the self, and I'm starting to identify more with the self. Guys, are you with me on this? Does this make any sense? Okay. As I identify with the self, I'm identifying with sunshine. I'm not walking on the sun. I'm starting to feel the sunshine, the shine of the sun. Okay, the shine of the sun, if it comes through my ego, may result in knowledge. It may result in realization, but it's definitely going to warm me up. It's going to warm, I'm going to feel warmer. So the qualities of the self start to constellate within me. The ego self-axis begins to open, and the qualities of the self begin to constellate within me. They're not mine. The silence is not mine. It's the absence of me. The qualities of the self are not mine. They're the absence. They happen in the absence of this response to my past. As I let go, I enter into this relationship at a deeper and deeper level. I start to identify with the self. The self starts to pull me in like a moth to the flame. So Jung says we circumambulate the self. We go round and round and round it. We don't step directly into it. That would be too big an experience. It doesn't happen that way. We gradually go round and round and round it. So we do one exercise. We gain that experience. We do another exercise. We gain a little bit more experience. And we're growing. We're maturing into the qualities of the self. I want to keep this as simple as I can. So what I'm saying is, from a theoretical point of view, from an understanding point of view, this is about two centers in the psyche. It's your own personal ego center and the center of the self. Yeah. Now your ego has complexes. Your ego is organized around these complexes. Mother, father complexes. Complexes about how you look, how you act, how you think, your behavior, full of shame, full of affect, shame, embarrassment, anger, sadness. All of these named emotions are affect, energy, emotional energy, and they're all part of your complexes. So Jung says, how do I recognize when I'm in a grip of a complex? Well, it's through heightened emotion. As soon as I recognize my emotion starting to rise, I know I'm in the grip of a complex. These complexes are centered around archetypal cores. So you can't have a complex without it growing out of an archetypal core. It can't exist. The complex has to have a flavor, has to have a position. I love my mother. I hate my mother. I love my father. I hate my father. There's an emotional position. Negative father, negative mother, positive father, positive mother. The archetype gives it its position. As I start to build on the experience of my life, it automatically aligns up within the archetypal position. It's a structure. One block of Lego sits on top of a bigger block of Lego. Do you see? It's built up into layers. Older stuff at the bottom, new stuff at the top. And what we're looking at is this sort of heap of experience. Personal experience in a heap. Now in Buddhism, they talk about skandhas. A heap of. So a heap of consciousness, the skandhas, different skandhas in Buddhism, heaps of consciousness. Okay, heaps of experience. In transpersonal psychotherapy, Groff talks about coex experience, systems of condensed experience. Again, a heap, a pile of experience, this emotional energy of experience. This is what the ego is. And also the want to survive. Okay, so when we don't know the silence, when we haven't built up the relationship with the silence, all we have is the heap. All we have is our own personal position, which is identified into being. It's constellated. It comes out of nowhere. Comes out of the past. Do you see how you put the cake in the oven and it's sitting in the baking tray. It's fine. And then after the cooking process, it's after coming up, rising up, and now it's flowed all out. It's all over the bottom of the oven. It has expanded, has grown in size. And in the same way, we inflate our position. We grow stuff out of nothing. We take a story and we develop the story and we form beliefs around the story. And those beliefs, we don't own them, they own us. To see all these power dynamics, the belief that we form, the power dynamic within us that tells us that, I got to fight for my position or I'll lose it, or I'm better than them, or they're better than me. These stories, they're all power dynamics because they're organizing us. Ideas organize us. So ideas are the basis of these power dynamics within us. And the ego complex, Jung describes the ego as being the central complex, is a power dynamic holding all these other power dynamics, other complexes. Do you see this heap of consciousness is organized through all of these stories? Guys, do you understand what I'm saying as I'm saying it? Does it give you an image in your mind? Okay. You go into a pet store and they sell aquarium stuff and there's all these fish tanks. And normally you go in and you see all the water's clean and you can see the fish swimming around, all the colors of the fish, and it's wonderful. And the light is on and all the colors is really nice. And you go in this day and the tanks have just been cleaned. They haven't settled. And all the silt, all the rubbish from the bottom is all stirred up. You can't see any of the fish. The light can't get down through the water because the water is murky. Okay, so when we're in the grip of all of our stories, the water is stirred up and the clear light of mind can't penetrate into this realm, can't come through us. Our psyche is stirred up, our complexes are fired off, our body is activated. All of these emotional memories are organizing us through the various power dynamics that they are. And we're completely possessed by our story. I will completely validate my position. You see, you said something rude to me. I'm justified in being angry back at you. And it's all part of a pattern. Everything that happens on the surface is in alignment with the pattern that's underneath the surface, which is part of the pattern that's underneath that, which fits in with the deeper pattern of what happened during your childhood. which is organized by the pattern of what happened when you were in vitro during the pregnancy, which is organized further by the pattern of the implantation in the womb, the 9 months and the implantation before that, which is organized by the pattern within conception, which is organized by the pattern of your karmic obligations to life itself. So all of what you are is organized by these patterns. Your thinking today is only limited or embraces the quality of expansion, insight by these patterns. Change happens when the time is right, not a moment beforehand. So I go out today and I have a big experience. Why? Because the time is right for it. Not down to anything you did. Do you see, the time being right is determined by what you realize. It's not about suppressing yourself. If you suppress yourself into a silence, sure, that's just suppression. It's not silence, it's force, it's power. Do you see the difference between embracing something that naturally is and perpetuating a pattern? I am in charge of this. Can you see the difference between, if I said, let's say, if I said to you, I want you to, okay, everybody, I want you to drop what you have in your hand. If you have something in your hand, I want you to drop your hand. Drop whatever you have in your hand. Yeah, okay. Now, I want you to pick up what you've dropped. You now have a possession. Whatever you have picked up is now part of you. That's the ego. It's been going through your entire life gathering possessions. And now it's a big heap of possessions. You have a big heap of experiences. If you got a book every day in your life, can you imagine how many books you'd have? Where would you put them all? You need a house to put all your books in. Whereas when you're letting go of something, when you put something on the ground, now it's gone. Your hands are free. I've nothing in my hands. What am I going to do? Am I going to fill my hands again immediately? Is that my addiction? Do you see, am I addicted to this story that I am? Well, we are. That's the truth. So the other center, the self, it's not organized through complexes. It doesn't have complexes. The sun is not personal. The sun is there for every living thing. It's the source of life. So the sun, from a depth psychology perspective, organizes us through the archetype of the self. And Jung called this the central organizing archetype. Now, when we start to identify with the self, with the silence, what we're doing is we're bypassing our stuff and we're going directly to life itself. We're recognizing life itself. Not in this form or that form, but in all of its forms. It's like re-engaging with the forest. You don't just see the leaves of the tree, you see the trees and the leaves and the forest floor and the sounds of the forest and the smells of the forest and the humidity, the moisture. You see, you get the whole thing. The experience is there. So the archetype of the self manifests into our personal position through qualities. Just as these complexes organize us through more personal, identifiable qualities. The archetype of the self, what are the qualities of the archetype of the self? What are the qualities that you would connect with the archetype of the self? What immediately happens when you start thinking about the archetype of the self? What happens to your mind? Where do you begin? How can you embrace an idea so big? Guys, come on, talk to me. How can you embrace an idea so big?
I just see a circle.
Yeah. We use symbols. What does the circle symbolize? What happens to your body when you stand in front of this circle? Does it take your breath away? As you relate with the circle, as you move into a relationship with a symbol of the self, do you see, as you stand in front of a sunrise or a sunset, as you start to approach an archetype, a symbol of an archetype, the symbol is containing the qualities of the archetype. So as you stand in front of sunrise, what happens to your own personal story? Yeah. Just do you see the difference between identifying through our own little position, my life, my experiences? It's seen through a goldfish mind. Sorry, do you want to say something? Woman in the middle and the front.
No.
No, okay. Do you see, I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm asking you to recognize. I'm asking you to stop and look at something. This life that you are is not personal. It doesn't belong to you. But you have robbed it for yourself. You are stealing the fire of the gods. You're trying to rob life of life. You've taken it for yourselves. It's now part of your possession. Do you see? And every moment you live is a moment you're likely to lose your life. And people like that are terrified of death. So fear of death, do you know, creates control. I'm living fearfully. I'm living with anxiety. My ego is organized through these archetypes, the negative side of these archetypes. The negative mother has been constellated in me because I'm frightened of death. I'm chasing after father. I want power over life. Do you see, I'm identifying through the ego. And because of that, I'm within karma. I'm within the story. I have shut myself off from the qualities of the self. Do you see, I'm a dealer in fool's gold. I don't have any real gold, but I've stolen lots of fool's gold. Do you see how fraudulent the position is? I'm coming from a place of ego. See how fraudulent that is. Either you have knowledge of something or you have wisdom of something. What's the difference? Knowledge of something and wisdom of something. What's the difference? Knowledge of the self. Oh, I've read the books. I've even done the program. Do you know what I mean? I sat in and I did the program. I studied for 10 years. Do you see? Well, where have you gotten to? Have you gotten to the wisdom yet? No, I'm still empty. I'm still chasing after something. Do you see? I'm still trying. Do you know? It's like nonsense, absolute nonsense. I'm still trying. What are you trying for? What are you trying to achieve? It's already here. Everything you're trying to achieve, it's already here. Well, where is it? It's within this opening of the ego self axis. It's within this moving into a relationship with the silence or the self. It's within the recognition of what these archetypes are and how the relationship with archetypes is quite a personal relationship, but the relationship with the archetype of the self is different. If I'm relating with the archetype of mother, could be a man or a woman, if I relate through the archetype of the mother, what's going to happen? I'm going to be either a good mother or a positive mother or a negative mother. That's it. I'll become a goddess or I'll become a witch. Equally with father, I'll become a tyrant or I'll become a savior. But if I relate with the archetype of the self, the organizing archetype, I'm relating with sunshine. It doesn't have these personalities attached to it. I'm relating with life itself. I'm relating with a circle. Not a little shape of a man with arms and legs. I'm relating with a circle. What's the difference? It's more abstract. What's the difference in something when it becomes more abstract? Less defined. There's less knowledge in it. Do you see? It's not telling you what it is. You have to go into it. You have to enter into the silence to find out what it is. And then the qualities of the self start to organize you. Just as your story has organized you, the qualities of the self, the silence itself, the void, starts to organize you. You start to realize you haven't done anything. You start to realize you're doing less. Maybe one of the things you realize is that when you do less, you're happier. How about that? That'd be nice. Or maybe you realize that you've been trying so hard all these years that really you're exhausted. You see, maybe you realize you just need a rest. And therein is the beginning of taking care of yourself. Self-acceptance, self-love, compassion, real empathy. Not this want people to like you stuff. So it's all about these two centers, the ego and the self. And it's all about being organized and being reorganized. It's about recognizing that you're not a person, you are a process. As you let go of the idea that you are a person, what are you letting go of? As you begin to accept the idea that you are a process happening, what are you gaining? As you let go of the idea that you are a person, what are you letting go of? You're letting go of a fixed position. As you take on the idea that you are a process, what are you taking on? Movement, flow, flexibility. Do you ever try and organize a car park? Do you ever try and move all the cars around in a car park without taking the brakes off? Do you know, can you imagine? You need a crane to lift each car up and move it around. You couldn't roll any of them. Can you imagine the job you'd have? If there was, you go down to Copenhagen airport, you want to reorganize all the cars, and they're all locked with the handbrakes on. Do you know, you'd be there for years. It'd be like a huge game of, I don't know, Rubik's Cube or something like that. It'd be impossible. But can you imagine how much easier it would be if the cars were open and the brakes were off? You could slowly move them around. Do you see? Your process is like that. You have the brakes on. Nothing can happen. You're gathering knowledge. You're picking stuff up off the floor. You're gathering bundles of consciousness. New knowledge. And you're becoming heavier and heavier and heavier with this new knowledge. You see, a certain amount of knowledge is important for realizing. But once you get to that point, you stop using knowledge. Guys, how many of you can type? Click, 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 click. How many of you are able to type? Yeah. 1, 2. I'm sure you all make a fair go at it, yeah? Even a couple of fingers. Yeah. Do you remember the old typewriters? How many of you have used an old typewriter? There's a question. That's really asking you how old you are. It is, though, isn't it? Like, let's go back a bit. Okay, back then, in those days, they used to have all sorts of aids to help you learn how to type. Do you see? Now, what would happen as you became proficient at typing? Would you keep using the aids? No, you'd get rid of all those. I don't need those anymore. To see exactly that, there's playing the piano. In the beginning, you need to learn how to read music. You need to learn the layout of the keyboard. You need to get familiar with the tone of the piano, what the pedals do. You need to have knowledge of music. And then you start to practice the piece of music. And once you become proficient through your practice, what do you do with the knowledge? It's in the background. You let go of it. You move into a much more immediate sense of being in the music. Your concern about getting the piece of music right fades away as the music begins to organize you. Okay, entering into the silence is exactly that. You need a certain amount of knowledge, and beyond that, it's a relationship. So moving from the archetypal level to the archetype of the self level is a different process. The ego axis is organized by archetypes. We are alignment within this archetypal structure of archetype and complex and emotional content. But when we start to engage with the archetype of the self, life itself, it takes us beyond this more personal map. We start to move more directly into qualities, the qualities of sunshine. Well, I feel warm. I'm happy. Do you see, I feel full. Even though I'm sad, I'm happy. How could that be? The four immeasurables in Buddhism: love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. The four immeasurables, because there's no end to them. They're immeasurable because there's no end to them. The qualities of the self have no end to them. But as soon as I become emotionally organized, I drop down a level. Instead of the music playing me, now I'm struggling to pay the music. I've dropped down a notch and I'm back into the realm of the world, the experience of the world, of my life, of my existence, of my past. Do you see, I'm now fragmented. I'm now split off. I'm now trying again. I'm identifying with loss, with fear. All of these complexes, these power structures inside of me are organizing me. Guys, does this, as I speak it out to you, does it resonate? Do bits of it land in you? Can you take in certain images? Okay, good. Okay, Jungians, I don't know if it was Jung, I think it was, but certainly Jungians talk about three processes within psychological terms. They talk about a process of distillation. And you probably heard mention of a process of crystallization. And also a process, I've mentioned it, of constellation. Distillation, crystallization, and constellation. Okay, I want to constellate something. I want to constellate this opening within the ego self axis. I got to enter into the silence. I got to recognize the entrance of the temple. It's like I'm walking up and down a street and I don't know where the door of the temple is. I need to constellate this relationship with the divine. I need to find the door of the temple. The silence. Where is the silence? Is it outside? Is it inside? Do you need to go to church? Do you see, where do you go to find God? Oh, I don't believe in God. Do you know? It's like, there you go. Yeah, do you know what I mean? What is the statement? Oh, I don't believe in God. Where does that statement come from? It comes from a belief that I want to have power. I don't believe in God. Now I'm special. I have a position. I'm special. My position gives me stability. It's me and me. Do you see? And even I believe in my God. Do you know? Oh, I believe in a Christian God or a Hindu God or, you know, my God. Another statement of power. I believe in the God. It's more abstract. I believe in the God of the circle. I believe in life. I believe that I am. I believe in breathing in and breathing out. Do you see? Look at the power dynamics within yourself. Look at what you're building on. Look at the ground that you're building around and what you're building on. I'll be happy when I have this, when I have that. Oh, I was abused, you know. Do you know? Oh, I'm so special. I was abused. Yeah, we've all been abused in different ways. Oh, I was sick. I got sick when I was young. Yeah, we've all been sick as well. All stories. Oh, but my parents. Oh, but my addiction. Do you see my hurt? It's all going in the wrong direction. My past, my story, it's all in the wrong direction. It's all creating more energy of the mind. It's like throw another few logs on the fire. Well, there now, I have another bit of work to do. I have to sort that out. Whereas when you put the book down on the ground and let go of it, that was job done. Now your hands are empty. Oh, hang on till I find something else to pick up. Do you see how it works? I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm asking you to recognize something. Do nothing. You want to meet your shadow? Do nothing. You do nothing long enough, you'll meet all of your shadow. You'll have to make peace with everything. You do nothing. You meet all of your emotions. So doing nothing, being nothing, it's not easy. You got to do nothing to be nothing. The transformation, the journey of identity, when identity begins to transmigrate, the transmigration of your own self-identity, this point, this identification of self, you, me, to see my story, this journey of self, the transmigration of self, it's moving a piece on the chessboard. You're ending the game. Checkmate. You've ended the game. You come into the center, you do your exercises, you have your experience, you go home, and you step back into your old identity. Might not happen tomorrow. It'll happen next week or the week after. You'll all sink back into normal consciousness. Except there will be an experience in you. Now, this is important. ego experiences have no numinosity. If I'm walking down the road and I see a ghost, it's like, oh, wow, look, there's a ghost. Tell all my friends, I saw a ghost. Do you know what I mean? Oh, you saw a ghost. Ah, yeah, go on, tell us another one. Do you see, it's like, yeah, whatever. But if I see God, do you think I'm going to shut up? I might never talk again. There's a lot of numinosity when the experience is coming from the self. Okay, so touching the silence is realizing. What changes the direction of our ego? It has a lot of energy in it. It has a lot of affect. You know, to bump you out of your story. You're driving down the road in your car and something hits you from the side. You don't know what it is. Truck has just hit you from the side and it pushes you all the way across the road into the far lane. Wow, that was some impact. You know, that other vehicle must have been traveling at 50 or 60 miles an hour to push you all the way across the road into another lane. And you survive it. Wow. I should be dead. Well, in a way, the impact is a form of ego death. The touching the silence has the effect of killing your ego because you're touching this numinosity, the numinosity of the archetype of the self. You're connecting with life itself. You then can justifiably say that you have wisdom of something rather than just knowledge of something. I'm coming from a place of wisdom of something. It's heart knowledge. My heart has been opened by touching the silence. Not the wishy-washy heartfulness of the ego. Not that shallow sort of, superficial type of emotion. I'm talking about something deep down that has pushed you across the road into a different lane. You're now traveling the different direction. You're going in a different direction. Do you see the silence? Do you see how big it is? This numinosity, this sunshine. So guys, the way this experience grows, you touch the silence. The way the experience then develops is through qualities. They begin to constellate in you. They start to grow out of nowhere. Things start coming together. I feel better. I just feel good. I feel more alive. Things don't touch me as much as they used to, don't bother me as much. Something is constellating. And then your mind begins to work on it. And you start to say, what is this? And a process of distillation is taking place. It's like you're starting to integrate it. You're starting to sort it out. Your ego is involved in it within the process of distillation. It's like you're sorting out the washing. Colors here, whites over there. You see, putting all the reds in a pile, all the blues in a pile, the blacks over here. You're sorting out the different colors. In order to integrate, you got to separate. So you're integrating the experience through this process of thinking about it, reflecting on it, contemplating it. This is a process of distillation. You're purifying it. And then it begins to crystallize. Something begins to crystallize. The insight, the recognition of. It begins to crystallize in you as something tangible. You see, I now can hold it in my hand. I can speak about it. It moves me. Do you see this? It's not just knowledge now. It's personal experience. I've worked, I've chewed it, and I've digested it. And it's constellated into something solid. It's crystallized. I have my own ideas about it. Do you see? It's my own living experience. I have the wisdom of it in me, my version of it. And this is part of the journey of becoming you. How do you separate from your family dynamic? By becoming you. So this whole thing, touching the self, touching the silence, the distillation, the sitting with it, the contemplation of it, the recognition of it, whatever insight you get, it's all part of an alchemical process. Does the cake get cooked? Well, was the oven on? You open the door, is the cake cooked yet? Well, down it goes. You tried too soon. So you mix up the ingredients, make another one. Maybe it won't flop. Do it again. Play the music again. Practice. Play the music again. Until the music begins to take you. It's like walking into the ocean. If you continue to walk into the ocean, someday the ocean will take you. Will it be the first time you walk into the ocean? No, probably not. But if you keep doing it, sooner or later, the ocean will take you. So guys, that's the talk. Now, you've done, regression work, you've done other forms of work, I'm sure. It's only useful if it's helped you to see where the entrance to the temple is. If you can recognize the doorway away from all of that work. If you keep doing that work, yeah, you'll just become an expert in digging holes. And you got to dig holes, some holes, that's for sure. But at some point in time, you'll enter the temple. The ocean will take you. Whenever you go outside today, I'll just end with this. You go outside today and you'll be looking at things, no doubt. You might walk down the road, you'll feel the wind, and maybe you'll see flies and birds and trees and all this sort of stuff. Every form of life you see is same life that's inside of you. Everything you recognize is you. You're seeing yourself as ego through your name, your experiences, where you live. That's not what you are. Talk about the unborn inside of you. Well, what is the unborn inside of you? So guys, any questions on that before we end that? I'm going to suggest have a few minutes break. You know, grab a cup of tea, go to the loo, do whatever you need to do, and we'll come back then. How long do you need? 10 minutes. Okay. Right. See you in 10 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Stuart. Can you stop the recording, and then I would.
Gone. Okay. So I'm just asking you, what bit out of all of that, what word, what image, what phrase, what description, is there anything that sticks with you? And you're saying the sunrise. Yeah.
I think also the qualities of the archetypes, it stick on me that when we stops and look at the thing and recognize it, it feels like you can enjoy the qualities of these things. It's like it's safe to experience that.
Yeah.
So it was nice to hear it.
Yeah, I'm going to say a little bit more about the archetypal end of it, because that's important. And it's not the understanding, the images, the relationships I want to convey. It's not immediately simple. You know, because the word, I mean, these concepts are not simple. So to get a deeper understanding of something that's not simple is difficult. It requires a certain focus, and hang on, we'll do it again until it's clear. So, guys, I want you to, you all have a page, a notebook, I'm sure, at your disposal, right beside you. Okay, so I want you to pick up your book, your notepad, and at the very top, draw a picture of the sun. Get a clean page, and just draw a little picture of a sun. You know, a little circle with sunshine coming out of it. And once you have that picture of the sun made, underneath that, immediately underneath that, I want you to write in the words archetype of the self. So you got a picture of the sun at the top shining out, and then underneath that you have the words, the archetype of the self. And then underneath the archetype of the self, that word, the next line, I want you to write in the archetypes. Those two, just the archetypes. So that's the third line down. And underneath the archetypes, I want you to write in the word complexes. And underneath complexes, I want you to write in the word emotions. Now, that's it. That's the structure. That's it, as simple as that. So you got the sunshine, you got the silence, the Dharmakaya, the grand luminescence of mind. You know, whatever words you want to use, God, whatever words you want to use, it's up there at the top, shining out. And it is neutral. It's just putting out life. It's just like this power station putting out power. Wow, life. Bloom. A heartbeat. Bloom. 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 The rhythm of the universe. The cosmos. It just is. It's forever there. Sun never goes out. It's doing what it does. And it's organized through the archetype of the self. So in Buddhism, they talk about the basic ground. You got the unknowable. You know, you're never going to understand what that is. It's unknowable. And then you got the basic ground, the action of karma. Okay, so the action of karma has created the archetype of the self. Life has created the experience of life, which evolves into more life and more life and more life, evolving all the time into more life, more advanced life, more diverse life. The archetype of the self is this blueprint for all of creation. And then the next level down is the archetypes. It's nearly like our experience of life, human experience of life. We have the pantheon of gods and goddesses. You know, gods and goddesses, what are they? Representing human qualities. So archetypes, the archetype of father, mother, hero, you know, all of the diversity of the attitudes of humanity are within these archetypes. Our personal experience comes from the archetypes. Our complexes align us to the archetypes. Do you want positive mother? Do you want negative mother? Well, they're both there. They're both equally available in the archetypal realm. But you're not going to the archetype of the self. You're going to the archetype of the positive mother or negative mother, trickster, hero, clown, king, whatever. You're not going to the blank sheet, the blueprint. So your personal experiences, your complexes, your emotional self is governed by your relationship with archetypes, the archetypal core of your complex. It's where personal consciousness meets collective consciousness. But when you go beyond it, when you start going to the archetype of the self, you start meeting sunshine. Which wipes out the story. There is no story. What story? I'm not organized by needing to be king or tyrant or carer or father or mother. They're all family issues. I'm organized by the archetype of the self. I'm blank. I don't know what I am. I'm nothing. I'm nobody. Do you see? It's not a nullification of the ego. It's an evolution of the ego. It's a higher position within the self, where now the qualities of the self are manifesting rather than the qualities within the ego. People work from the bottom of the ladder upwards. And in the beginning, we're governed completely by our complexes. We are unconscious. And we are acting out our behaviors all over the place. And then little by little, we're developing self-awareness. Now, what's self-awareness? What is awareness? Is awareness coming from your complexes? Or is awareness a quality of life itself? So the relationship is already there. but there's too much mud in the water. You see, and little by little we begin to settle. The mud starts to settle. And we start to recognize more and more. And we become aware of ourself. And we become aware of awareness of ourself. And then we become aware of the awareness. What's that? What happens to me when I'm just aware of the awareness? Do I even see what goes on in the world when I'm aware of the awareness? Is anything good or bad? Or is it all just a process? Life, creating more life, creating more life. See, these four immeasurables, the qualities of in Buddhism, love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. When you get lost in your own story, what are you losing? Look what you're closing down. You're closing down joy, compassion, love, equanimity. You lose your stability. You start identifying through archetypal core. You start identifying through negative, positive, have not. What's happened to you? Oh, I have a short leg. Do you know, a short leg and a big nose? Do you know what I mean? Oh no, I'm damaged. I have a short leg and a big nose. Do you see? It's like it's all personal, completely made up to suit myself. I'm doing it to myself. More nonsense and more nonsense and more nonsense, and yet all we have is nonsense in the beginning. That's all we have access to is nonsense. Oh, I was hurt. Somebody hit me. I'm in the grip of an archetype. Archetypes living me. I'm not living. Archetypes are living me. I'm in the possession of my beliefs. I don't have beliefs. My beliefs have me. I'm caught in the power dynamic of my own self, ego. To break free of that dynamic, to break free of that belief-centered position, I got to empty my mind. So the archetype of the self, it's right up there at the top. Does that clarify it? Sunshine, the archetype of the self, the central organizing archetype, bringing life to all of the other archetypes. Everything begins to expand out into diversity, creation, masculine, feminine. Femininity within the organized creation, within the creation itself, and masculinity within the organizing of the creation. When you breathe in and you breathe out, something is breathing you. So guys, what else did you take from earlier on? Any images? In relation to what you were doing yesterday or the previous days? Building a view. Yeah.
Because I'm not a person on the process.
Sorry, say again. I'm not.
A person, I'm a process.
I can't make out what you're saying. Something about process.
Yeah, I'm not a person, I'm a process.
Yeah, that's right. And yet I'm a person as well. you know, the caught between rock and a hard place. Which is it? Like, yeah. What type of person am I? I'm a person within process. This movement, to be open to movement, be open to changing our mind about things, to be able to develop a new view, not based on belief, right, wrong. You know, can we embrace groundlessness? If we're to be more whole, can we take in our own madness? You know, or without being mad, can we accept a nonsensical view of ourselves? I'm not an identity. I'm life itself. I am the circle. See this, all these different schools of psychology, transpersonal psychology, humanistic psychology, you know, therapy, art therapy, analytical psychotherapy, depth psychology, they're all just pointers for your own process. They're all just ideas that somebody else have come up with. Now, realization happens deep within you. That's the ground of your being, not what's written in the book or what's hung up on the wall. It's to get in touch with this process of realization within yourself. I put my hand here in my heart. See this process of realization within yourself. The archetypes that you're already in alignment with, they hold your pattern. Okay, the central archetype, the self, has the ability to reorganize the pattern. So as you enter the temple, as you step across the threshold, as you enter into the silence, something miraculous can happen. Because you're no longer within the realm of your own belief about things. You can literally walk away from your story. Now, if that were to happen, if you suddenly walked away from your story, I would expect a big catharsis. Because I'm holding on to my story. My story is holding on to me so strongly. Do you see that breaking free would be a big catharsis? So you see people having these moments of realization and they fall down. You know, they become helpless on the ground for an hour or two or a day. See, what's happening? When somebody is in that process, what's happening? They're being reorganized. They're realizing, they're having an experience. They've entered into the chaos, groundlessness, where nothing is solid anymore. Everything is in movement. Everything is a process. Nothing is fixed. Like, I don't know whether to cry or be happy. You know, the realization that comes out of touching the silence, and I absolutely say this honestly to you, is that all is well. So the more you can embrace the reality that all is well, bigger hands are holding it. We could do it all on the exhale. If I said, okay, I want you to focus for the rest of the day, I want you to focus on your exhale. What would you realize? If the exercise for today was exhaling, what would you realize? Off the top of your head, what would you realize? I put up my hand and say, I'd realize that I don't have to. All my life, I've been governed by the belief that I have to. Do you see? Do you see how amazing it is? Just by looking at the exhale, I realize I don't have to. Brings me to a stop. That's great. Now I can begin the new Gestalt differently, with more awareness. I can begin the new cycle differently, with more awareness. As I stand up again, I stand up a changed man, realizing I don't have to. I'm happier. I'm happy that I don't have to. God, I was so exhausted trying. Endlessly trying in this way and that way and another way. That was the pattern, trying. In this way and that way. There's the new cycle, new form. Same pattern, new form. See this repeating cycle. Where does it come out of? You have to try to belong. You see, the family. You have to try in order to belong. Love is scarce. You have to try. You have to be different if you want to belong. Make yourself special in this family. So I became a nuisance. In my family. Because I said, no, not doing that. Do you see the ending? The ending is beginning. The ending is different than what's been going on during the cycle. You watch the tide coming in and the tide going out. You know, when the tide is coming in and all the boats swing around and face into the tide, you see, you're able to say, oh yeah, the tide is coming in. Look, all the boats are facing into the tide. And then it comes to the top of the cycle where the tide changes. And now the boats start circling the moorings. They're not pointing in any direction. The tide is neither coming in nor going out. It's groundless. It's in this process. Uncertainty. And then the tide starts going out again. All the boats swing around, face a different direction. They're organized differently. So guys, anything else you want to say out of what I spoke about earlier on? How does it tie in with yesterday?
I think it was good to hear the thing about time, and it doesn't matter when it happened because it's happening now.
All is well.
When was it? And yeah, but it doesn't matter because it's happening now.
Yep. And sure, that's life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Stepping into the macro position, that's life. So there you go. And look at where you've stepped out of. Look at all the drama that you've stepped away from. Look at all the emotional energy that was being exhausted, channeled through your complexes. Look at the drama of your life that you were center stage in, or maybe you were running away from. It's like, holy God, look at all that nonsense that was going on. Do you know, but it's true. It's like, look at what was living you. Chaos. Complete nonsense. Whether it was deep in addiction or whether it was chasing your tail up a tree, it doesn't matter. Do you see, the new reality is emptiness. Yeah, whatever. And that allows me to listen more closely. Because there is no agenda. I'm not holding a position all of the time. I'm sure, of course, ego comes back and suddenly I'm in a position, and that's the way it goes. In Sufism, they say the correct posture as you approach the door of the temple is with your head on the ground. Why do you suppose that is? What does that symbolize? Your head on the ground.
I'm thinking of prayer or like surrendering.
Yeah. What do you surrender? When you let go, what are you letting go of? What is real humility? What is true humility? What happens in you when you enter into a state of humility? Do you open up or close down? Yeah. God, look how closed down yous all were. You know, you think humility is a lessening of yourself. Well, it is. But look at what happens in yourself when you enter into humility. Look at how much you open up. You take on the environment of the temple. Oh my God, look at that. And then, of course, it's self-inflation time. Oh, look at me flying up very high in the sky. Oh, I'm off on another one. Do you see, the whole process of self-inflation takes off again. All right, we do another lap. To go around the cycle again. Do you see, and learn more about what it is to be humble, to be nothing. Do you see, to be humbled, to be brought to a stop. Meeting the archetype of the self. your head in the ground. I can still see you, Hella. Ah,
Bye.
guys, do you understand? Do you get? I'm just dropping words here, but do you get the images? Do you get the descriptions behind the words? Can you take it into your own process and work with it and see, okay, this is what we're at here. It's not just about being quiet for the rest of the day. It's about actually opening yourself up in a very humble way to something much bigger. Learning about aliveness. What is it? What is aliveness? I can tell you what it's like to be alive, but I don't know anything about aliveness. So we bring eyes to the soul. We give eyes to the soul. It's said that the soul is blind until we enter self-awareness. As we touch our soul, as we get in touch with the self, we bring sight to that which is blind. We give life the experience of becoming alive. We give our life over to life itself. We allow life to become alive through us. Where do you think the music comes from? Where do you think color comes from? Do you know what I mean? The beauty in the world. Where does it all come from? So guys, you've only a few minutes left before you step out. So is there anything you want to say or do or share? That little thing I got you to write down on the page, you know, the sun and then archetype the self and archetypes and complexes and emotions. If you were to draw a circle around emotions, complexes, and archetypes, that's the ego. That's where personal identity is. And I suppose archetypes are the collective side of the personal identity. You know, emotion, complexes, that's really us. And really then the archetype of the self would represent, you know, the Godhead, spirituality, the transcendent principle. I enter into a transcended life. And yet, so important not to stop being human. Do you see? So the bit of me that walks on the ground, you know, with dirty boots, muddy boots, it keeps me grounded. If I didn't have muddy boots, what would become of me? I'd fly off into the sun.